Okay, so we're still in the pilot section where we're trying to set our course for the rest of the day. And we've talked about the short-termy things that we can be doing, which is scheduling and to-do lists. Let's talk in this video about projects and areas. Now, David Allen, in his book, Getting Things Done, which, as I said, is the Bible on productivity and what we should all be reading at some point in our lives, he defines a project as anything that has more than one task associated with it. So, for example, filming the Skillshare class is definitely a project because there are loads and loads of tasks associated with it. Also, something like producing a certain YouTube video about how to get started with investing in the stock market. That would be a project because there are multiple tasks associated with it. Number one, it involves writing, then editing, and then sending the script for review, and then fact checking, and then filming the video, and then editing the video, and then publishing the video. Those are all multiple tasks within the same project. And so with that very broad definition of what a project is, most of us will have somewhere between 10 and 100, probably more towards the 100 section, depending on how complicated you like to live your life. And the main point in thinking in terms of projects is that it gives us a mindset shift, because people who are less pro at productivity will think about doing a project, but that's not really a thing. Like, if I were to think of, I need to do the Skillshare class, it's never ever gonna get done because it's actually got like 100 different steps, 100 different tasks within the project of doing the Skillshare class. Equally, something like study for my chemistry exam is a project, it's not a task. But if we think about studying for chemistry, that is, it's not a thing we can wrap our minds around because it's a project, not a task. A task needs to be immediately actionable and ideally have some kind of deadline to it. So revise for chemistry exam would be a project, but revise chapter 1, revise chapter 2, revise chapter 3, revise chapter 4, active recall chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, spaced repetition, active recall chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are 12 different tasks. And so when we're making our plan for a given day, we want to be thinking about doing the tasks rather than doing the projects. Like, it would be a lot easier for me to say, I'm going to sit down and revise chapter 1 in chemistry than it is for me to say, I'm going to sit down and revise chemistry. So the more specific we can make our task, the more likely we are actually to get it done. And so, for example, for filming the Skillshare class, the project is create Skillshare class about productivity. But the specific task for today is film the first 5 videos in that class, which is in the pilot section. And I have been procrastinating, between you and me, I've been procrastinating from filming this class for the last 3 months. And it's only today that I've decided to break it down into tasks rather than think of it as like a whole mountain that I have to climb, that I've actually started to do it. The other main reason for having a long ass list of projects that we're working on is that when we are doing our engineering thingy, more on that later, essentially what we have to do is we have to make sure that every single project has an appropriate next action. Because there's no point having a project on the project list that doesn't have a next action, because the action is the thing that we're going to be doing, or the task, not the project itself. And benefit number 3 of maintaining a projects list is that it helps use the concept of the slow burn, which is something that I learned in the Building a Second Brain online course by Tiago Forte, link in the video description if you fancy checking that out. But essentially, there's kind of 2 ways of thinking about getting stuff done. There is the heavy lift, and then there is the slow burn. The heavy lift would be something like, all right, Ali, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna film all 18 videos in the Skillshare class in a single day. It's all gonna get done. It's a very heavy lift. It requires a lot of work. But the slow burn is more like, I've got these 8 different projects on the go, and occasionally over the course of days or weeks or even months, I'm just gonna kind of add stuff to them as and when I have ideas, and I can kind of slowly work on them. So for example, right now we've got a projects list of 8 more Skillshare classes that we're working on, me and my team. And for me, as I have random moments in the day, so for example, if I'm at work and there's a spare 20 minutes, I will open up Notion and I'll start adding more bits to one of them. And it just helps kind of slow burn. It means that when I get down to finalizing the structure of one of these classes and then getting down to filming it, then I can do the heavy lift. But actually the class has been cooking on the slow burner for the last 3 months. And so it's a lot easier to do then than it is just doing the heavy lift. And so the benefit of maintaining this projects list is that we can kind of just slow burn stuff as we're going along, but it also means that we end up doing background processing on the projects. And so that's why I really like having a list of all my current video ideas, because I will randomly find that while I'm in the shower or in the car or at the gym or whatever, I will just have an idea for one of them. And I'll just be like, oh, cool, I've had this idea. Let me write it down in Notion in my relevant kind of information section for the project. But if I didn't have an up-to-date projects list, I wouldn't be doing any kind of background processing on them because I just wouldn't know what I have to get done. People who play postal chess often talk about this. They're like, you play postal chess, you receive a move from your opponent and you're like, okay, what's going on? And then when you're sleeping on it, your brain is doing background processing, and then the next morning the move comes to your head. As weird as it sounds, I've really found that to be true for my YouTube channel and for all the other projects that I'm working on as well. As long as I have them written down somewhere, at some point, I will be doing some level of background processing on them, which is why I'm so bullish on everyone just kind of having an up-to-date list of projects that you're working on. So up-to-date list of projects, project being defined as something that has more than one action, and then making sure that every single project has a viable next action associated with it. In terms of apps, because everyone loves talking about apps, like I said, the one that I use is Things, but basically every single to-do list manager has some way of defining a project, and then you can break that project up into separate tasks. So again, it really doesn't matter which app you're using. And just to wrap up, kind of the next level up, as we talked about in our Horizons of Focus video, is the areas of focus or areas of responsibility. And so often what I'll do is I will categorize my projects within areas. And again, Things and Todoist and stuff lets you do that kind of separation. So for example, project like, get 6-pack abs, which would be a project, would be under the health section of my life. Or something like Film Skillshare class would be a project which would be under the business section, which would kind of be the area. So areas of responsibility, a long list of projects, which are kind of mostly within those areas, and then a longer list of next action steps for each of those projects. And just having that lets us do slow burning, it lets us do background processing. And it means that when we are being our pilot at the start of the day, or when we're doing a weekly review, more on that later, we can look through our projects list and then we can close any open loops that might be open and that needs closing, but we'll talk more about that in one of the future videos. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.